Hello everyone, I'm a long-time lurker here and I never thought I'd be one of the people writing a post here. But life comes at you fast, doesn't it? I am 37 male, married to a 33 female partner, and we have two beautiful sons who are 3 and 5. I've been working as a teacher for most of my life and she's currently an administrative employee at a stationery company. As you might be able to tell from that, we're not the highest earning couple, but life has been good and we've been happy. We've been married for 7 years now. Some background that I think I might need to share is that I've always felt like our bedroom life could be a lot more exciting. Growing up, I've been in 2 major relationships where I was cheated on, and honestly, those were probably the biggest events that shaped how I see relationships. I've always been extremely cautious of women after that, but I let my guard down with my now wife. However, as much as I know that women who want to cheat will cheat, I have this obsession with plugging up any excuses they can try to use. I'm very vocal in the bedroom about wanting to please her more and do more, but she seems to be more into vanilla things. As much as I have already established this in my mind, it still doesn't stop me from trying to talk to her about things every now and then in case there's something she might want to try out, but is too afraid to say. I don't judge, and I just want to make sure that we can keep our things in the bedroom as exciting as possible. You'll get why I'm telling you this soon enough. She came back from home one day and said that she and some of her coworkers went to a nearby bar to eat and drink and just unwind after the day. According to her, people started talking about bedroom activities, as adults sometimes do. Then one of her coworkers, who we'll call Jake, started to talk a lot. By the way, I know Jake. I've met him before and he works closely with my wife, so he tends to come up often, but not in any way that really raised red flags. Today was different though, because as she was talking about his own sexual stories, she seemed to be relatively animated. She found his intimate life to be interesting by the looks of things, a lot more than all the other people she had mentioned in her story. Anyway, she came back home immediately after that, and after telling me the story, everything was fine. However, she seemed to really be in the mood when we got into the bed that night, and that was very different to me. She usually wasn't one to initiate, and when she did, it was hardly as intensely as she did that night. In the corner of my mind, I felt like she might have been turned on by the conversation that she and her coworkers had, but I felt like Jake in particular was what made her so excited. I couldn't help but think that she might have been fantasizing about him, which was a very disgusting thought for me to have. After that, I barely thought about this guy, to be honest. However, this happened around the end of the year and her company was going to have a Christmas party, and she asked me to come along with her. There was little reason for me not to. The kids were at an aunt's place for the holidays, so it was just us, and I like to get to know the people she works with better, because they come up a lot in her end-of-day rants. Honestly, at this point, I had forgotten entirely about the whole thing with Jake because there was not enough for me to really be fixated on. Let me clarify something. I have met Jake before, like I said, and I've seen him interact with my wife. The two of them are very friendly, but not in a way that I thought was excessive. I'm sure he's one of my wife's preferred coworkers, which is fine. I can't assume that everyone of the opposite gender that she's friendly with is a threat. Now, the problem is when we saw Jake and he seemed to be avoiding my wife. He returned her wave, but he barely smiled and he didn't even make to approach. In fact, it looked like he intentionally decided to join a crowd of people who were talking. It was odd to me, but since my wife didn't say anything, I didn't either. At another point during the party, I managed to bump into Jake, but he just seemed like he wanted to get away from me, though he wasn't rude. Eventually, I took the hint and let him go, but the entire situation just seemed off to me. He wasn't acting that way around anyone else, and since that attitude seemed to extend to me and not just my wife, something started to seem fishy to me. Eventually, we got home and I tried to hint my wife by saying, Jake was acting odd today, wasn't he? But she seemed to be very disinterested and just waved it off, saying that he gets in strange moods sometimes. She had been working there for 3 years and she had never mentioned that, so it really did sound off to me. The problem is, my cheating phobia has returned and suddenly I think that all the signs are there that something happened between the two of them that she's not telling me. It could be that he made a pass on her and got rebuffed, or the other way around. It could be that something actually happened between them and he doesn't know how to handle being around her or around me. It gives the vibe of something that at least one party regrets, but she doesn't seem to be bothered about the whole thing, so I'm starting to feel that Jake made a move on her or touched her in some kind of way, and it is starting to take up too much of my mental bandwidth. I'm getting pissed and angry at the possibility, and I'm going to have to find out what's going on to settle my head. So, I've made the decision to try and check my wife's phone to see whether there's any correspondence between them, but if that fails, I guess I'll just have to ask her directly, and hopefully, she might just admit to it if I can bluff and convince her that I know the truth. I guess we will see. Well, avoidance seems to say it all. I mean, how could he look the husband of the woman he's sleeping with in the eyes, and then suddenly being more inspired in the bedroom? She's got to release the steam somehow, right? And if she's not doing it with him, who better than her own husband? Update 1. So I have a massive update for all of you regarding the story I told a few weeks ago regarding my wife and her coworker, Jake. The truth is that I was operating entirely on suspicion and I had nothing concrete to go by. But after reading posts here for years, I've realized that sometimes it is worth going by your gut feeling, quite honestly, so that's what I decided to do. Thankfully, I think it paid off, but it wasn't easy getting to the part where it did. So, as I said at the end of my last post, I made the decision to check her phone when I got the chance. The thing was, I didn't want her to have any suspicion, so I had to wait until the perfect moment, and when I got it, I went straight into her messaging apps. I checked Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, and her iMessage, but I found nothing suspicious. I even saw a conversation with Jake in iMessage, but there wasn't much there. It was work stuff and basic pleasantries. I had about 10 minutes with the phone and I tried my best to check everything that I could, but I honestly found nothing to confirm my suspicions. However, there were some aspects in her chat with him where the conversation seemed to flow strangely, and I felt there could have been deleted messages there. The thing is, I knew that I couldn't end my search at that point. I went through her gallery on another day, hoping to find something that was at least a little incriminating, but once again, there was nothing of note there, which was quite annoying for me. I remember acknowledging how stupid it was that I couldn't find evidence of my wife cheating, and that somehow made me mad. I think I had held on to the belief that there was something between her and Jake, and I wanted it to be true because it was the only thing that would settle my head. I knew that if I found nothing, I would just come to the conclusion that she hid it very well, or I didn't check the right places. Eventually, I got fed up. When I summed up the courage, I decided to ask her about it straight up. She seemed pretty shocked by the accusation I brought against her, which seemed fair considering I brought it up out of nowhere. I didn't say she was cheating, but I asked her if there was anything between her and Jake. I even tried to soften the blow by making it seem like I felt it was more likely that he was making moves on her. She denied it all though, but that gut feeling just never went away after that conversation, even though it should have. Honestly, the entire thing was very confusing for me to mentally navigate. Now, this is where things get pretty exciting. I was in a random McDonald's during a grocery run on a Saturday, and who do I see if not Jake, standing in line to order? I initially didn't want to engage, but I realized that he'd see me eventually, so I called out to him and waved. But he was the exact same way that he was at the Christmas party. It seemed like he wanted to get out of there as soon as he saw me. He seemed very shifty and his body language changed, and it wasn't like that before he knew I was there. As soon as he got his food, he left swiftly without even glancing at me. This was the part where I fought the world's quickest and most intense game of tug-of-war in my head, but eventually the aggressive side of me won. I left the line and headed out the door after him, and I managed to catch up to him right as he got to his car. I'm not proud of what went down next because I honestly don't know what came over me, and I think it might be all the cheating experiences I've gone through in the past resurfacing in the least healthy way, but I pushed him against his car and asked him, "What's your deal, man?" I explained how he'd been acting some way ever since the Christmas party. He got visibly shifty and he didn't even try to push back or react like most men would after being randomly shoved like that. I remember he said, "I don't want any problems," under his breath, and that just made me. I put my forearm against his throat and told him to tell me what was going on between him and my wife, and shockingly, he didn't seem shaken by what I said. He just seemed more frightened of me. "I was scared this was going to happen. I didn't want to." I asked him to explain, and I raised a fist threateningly. I was fully ready to punch him in the nose. I still can't really understand what came over me, but I think with each additional thing that he said, I just got angrier and angrier. He told me that he was going to speak, but I should set him free. I realized I was applying a bit too much pressure on his throat, so I let him go. He spluttered a bit and sat on the hood of his car. He took his time to regain himself, and then he started talking, without even meeting my eyes. "Your wife, I knew she was married. We've met before. I didn't want any part of it. You know what I mean? But she just kept coming at me. She kept pushing. And then one of the days when we all went out drinking like we always do, she followed me home, and I think I was just in the mood that day. But I knew it was wrong. If I was sober, I never would have done it. I promise you that. She was so pushy, and ever since everything happened, I found it so hard to be around her, or to be around you. I feel bad, but I couldn't confess." I think I stood there for about 3 minutes digesting everything that he said because it honestly made sense at the moment. That was why she wasn't bothered when she saw Jake at the Christmas party, and it was why he was so shifty around both of us. It likely only happened once, and they weren't having an affair, so it all explained why there was no trail on her phone. However, she might have tried to be flirty or pushed for a repeat and eventually deleted those messages. Yet, she lied through her teeth to me, as cheating partners obviously would do. Once I digested everything he said, I looked at him and told him, "Thank you for telling me the truth." I wanted to apologize, but I didn't, because at the end of the day, he still slept with my wife, whether he was under the influence or not. However, I decided not to mess him up beyond the fear I had already put into him. Let me say that I acknowledge that I was very reckless. I had very little proof that anything was going on before I physically confronted him, but I can't deny that the gut feeling was strong, and I knew I just had to get some degree of confirmation or it would have kept eating me from the inside. Yeah, I could have just scared him with words instead, but hey, it paid off, and I guess that justifies my means. Now all that's left is for me to confront my cheating wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, with what I've found, and I'll kick her to the curb, but I want to make this really hurt for her, so I'm going to bide my time well. Who knows how many other people she's cheated on me with? I don't even want to think about it. I'll be back with an update once I settle everything. Ah, there we go. Hey, at least he's honest in a way that a deer might be when it's caught in the headlights. And of course your wife denied everything. Denial is practically an art form in these situations. Update 2. I'm back and I'm glad to be back. Here's what's going to be the final update of this saga with my ex-wife, and I'm glad to say that I've finally gotten to the end of the road regarding this. I feel exhausted after all of it, but I'm glad I found the clarity and closure that I was looking for. So, when I decided that I was going to confront her regarding what I had learned from Jake, I decided to act unaware and just play the role of an insecure husband who didn't know the whole truth. I told her that I was worried, once again, that there was something going on between her and Jake, and her response was to say that I was clearly paranoid, that there was nothing. "When was the last time you saw me and Jake? Do you want to go through my phone and look through my pictures? You're starting to irritate me." At this point, I was pissed, so I told her straight up that I had spoken to Jake, and he told me everything about their drunken night. I could see her face change immediately. Her lips moved like she was about to say something, likely to instinctively deny it, but she held back. I think that she realized that there was nothing she could say. She must have realized that I actually knew what the truth was. "You lied to my face. Twice." "What was I supposed to do? Admit to cheating?" I didn't even know what to say to that because it was only expletives that were swimming through my head. After I recollected myself, I told her I was going to get a divorce and I was going to make sure I took everything from her, even the children. Then she started cursing at me, saying that she'd make sure that I was left with nothing before she'd ever let that happen. I couldn't handle it anymore, so I just walked out. The kids were at home and they were sleeping, and I knew things were going to get crazy if I stayed. I got back to the house the next morning and we didn't say a word to one another. She took the kids to school and went to work after that. While she was gone, I made sure to pack up all her things and put them right by the door. I also got in touch with a divorce lawyer who said he'd get to work right away so that the papers could be ready to serve her. Shockingly, when I served her with the papers, she accepted them willingly. I guess she was ready to frustrate me in the actual divorce proceedings and not before that. Needless to say, when the time came around, she came out dirty. She claimed I raped her regularly, physically assaulted her, and she told all sorts of lies to make me less credible and to turn me into the villain. It was clearly the plot that she and her lawyer had come up with to pull the kids away from me in the very least. I didn't have any evidence of her cheating, which definitely didn't help my case, but funny enough, she never denied it explicitly throughout the proceedings. When it became clear that we weren't going to agree on the terms, we took things to court, and thankfully, that was where things were really able to get sorted. I don't know how I thought of it, but my lawyer suggested I try to reach out to Jake and get him to testify. So, I sought him out on Facebook and messaged him right away. I told him everything right away, and fortunately the next day, he said he would help however he could since it was the least he could do. Now remember, when I said there were certain aspects of my ex-wife's messages with Jake that seemed like something had been deleted? He had taken the screenshot before she deleted it because he sent it to discuss it with a friend of his. And yep, that was where I saw her flirting with him and asking for them to do it again because I was too drunk to really enjoy it, but I want you so bad again, haha. And fair play to Jake because he told her right there that it was a big mistake and he never should have done it. Well, true to his word, Jake came in and testified to the entire thing. He talked about how strongly she had come on to him, how he had denied her initial approaches, how she had followed him home, and how they had slept together while both drunk. He mentioned that she had been rubbing up on him all night, even before the alcohol had really hit, so it was clear she had those intentions from the start of the day. The screenshots were also shown, and that was pretty much the end of Jake's role in my life. However, it seemed to do a lot in my favor. Her claims of abuse on my part didn't seem to hold much water when they were seriously scrutinized, and at the end of the day, after a whole lot of divorce drama, things were settled, and I'll say that I really don't hate how the judgment turned out. I got 70% custody, as they felt I was a better role model for the children, especially with her lies towards me. We shared a car, and the judge favored me with that since I would have the kids most of the time. That also allowed me to keep the house. And when it came to alimony, the judge mentioned how he never felt compelled to reward behavior such as hers in the slightest, so I am free of alimony, which is great since we pretty much earned similar amounts. The best part of this was that it became pretty well known in her workplace that Jake had to testify in court regarding adultery. I don't know how that leaked, I promise. But anyway, things got uncomfortable for her working there, and eventually she was let go simply because the company didn't want to deal with the drama of someone who had potentially taken advantage of a younger employee in the manner that she did. I remember she called me cursing when she found out she had been let go, but I was smiling on the other end the whole time. So, that's it for me. And that's it for my marriage story. I don't think I'll try again because it comes with too much drama, but who knows what the future holds.